Sometimes the strongest person in the room is the one silently holding everything together and quietly falling apart where no one can see. There's a strange weight that comes with being the strong one, the one people turn to when things break, the one who doesn't get to pause because others are already leaning on them. You know the moments when everyone else is allowed to vent, but you swallow your own thoughts because it would complicate things. When you're the calm voice during chaos, even when your chest feels tight and your mind is loud. When someone asks if you're okay, and you instinctively say yes, not because it's true, but because it's easier than explaining something you barely understand yourself. It becomes a role you didn't consciously choose, but slowly accepted. And over time, it shapes how you exist in the world. You become reliable, grounded, unshaken. But beneath that surface, there's a quiet exhaustion that rarely gets acknowledged. It's not just about being strong. It's about feeling like you're not allowed to be anything else. Psychologically, this pattern often connects to what's known as emotional suppression, a tendency to manage or hide one's own emotional experience to maintain stability for others. It sounds functional, even admirable, but over time it can disconnect you from your own needs. Researchers like James Gross, known for his work on emotional regulation, have found that suppressing emotions doesn't eliminate them, it intensifies internal stress. Another study suggests that people who are consistently seen as the strong one often develop a heightened sense of responsibility for others' emotions, sometimes at the cost of their own well-being. You start to notice patterns. You're the one who listens more than you speak. You fix problems that aren't yours. You stay composed when others unravel, even if you're barely holding yourself together. You become the emotional anchor, but no one checks if the anchor itself is cracking. It's like being a lighthouse in a storm, steady, guiding, essential, but constantly exposed to waves that no one else feels. And the strange part is, people admire you for it. They praise your strength, your resilience, your ability to handle anything. But what they don't see is how that identity can quietly trap you. Because once you're seen as strong, it becomes harder to admit when you're not. You begin to fear that showing vulnerability might confuse people, or worse, disappoint them. So you carry more. You say less. And you slowly disappear behind the version of you that everyone depends on. And it's heavy. Heavier than most people realize. Because strength, in this form, isn't just resilience, it's restraint. It's holding back tears, words, and moments of truth, because the timing never feels right. And maybe no one ever told you that being strong doesn't mean being silent. Over time, this role doesn't just stay external, it becomes internal. You begin to measure your worth by how much you can endure without breaking. You pride yourself on staying composed, on being the one who doesn't need help. But deep down, there's a quiet question that lingers. Who holds you when you're the one always holding others? It shows up in subtle ways. You hesitate before opening up, even to people you trust. You downplay your struggles because they don't seem serious enough. You feel uncomfortable receiving support, as if it's something you haven't earned. Psychologically, this can connect to what's called self-reliance conditioning, often developed in environments where expressing vulnerability wasn't safe or rewarded. You learned early that strength meant control, and control meant survival, so you adapted. And it worked, until it didn't. Because the mind can only carry so much unprocessed emotion before it starts to leak through cracks. Researchers have found that chronic emotional suppression can lead to increased anxiety, emotional numbness, and even physical stress responses. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. And humans aren't built to carry everything alone. There's a quiet escalation that happens here. At first, it's manageable. You feel tired, but you push through. Then, the tiredness becomes deeper, harder to shake. You start feeling disconnected, even in moments that should feel meaningful. Conversations feel surface level. Joy feels muted. And you can't quite explain why. It's not dramatic. It's subtle, like slowly fading in a room where everyone still sees you clearly, but you don't feel fully there anymore. You become efficient, at functioning, but distant from feeling. And the world keeps reinforcing it. People continue to rely on you, to praise your strength, to expect your stability. And you keep delivering, because that's who you've become. But somewhere inside, there's a quiet voice asking for something different. Not less strength, but a different kind of strength. One that allows space for softness. One that doesn't require constant self-sacrifice. The turning point isn't loud. It doesn't arrive with a breakdown or a dramatic shift. It's quieter than that. It's a moment of awareness. A realization that being strong has started to cost you more than it gives. That the version of you everyone admires is only one part of who you are. And maybe, just maybe, you don't have to carry everything alone to be valuable. That realization doesn't erase the habit overnight, but it opens a door, a small, fragile door to something new. Something unfamiliar, but necessary. And in that space, something begins to change. You start to see your strength differently, not as something you have to prove, but as something you can redefine. Because real strength isn't about how much you can tackle in silence. It's about knowing when silence is no longer serving you. It's about allowing yourself to be seen, not just as the stable one, but as the full, complex human you are. The one who feels deeply, the one who sometimes struggles, the one who deserves support, not just gives it. You begin to notice small shifts. You pause before automatically saying, "I'm fine." You let yourself sit with emotions instead of pushing them away. You allow someone to show up for you, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. It's not easy. It feels unfamiliar, even vulnerable, but it also feels honest. And honesty has a quiet kind of relief to it. You realize that the strength you've been carrying all along isn't disappearing, it's evolving. It's becoming more balanced, more sustainable. Like a tree that no longer resists the wind, but learns to move with it. There's still resilience, still grounding, but also flexibility. And that flexibility is what keeps it from breaking. You don't have to stop being strong. You just have to stop being strong in a way that costs you your own presence. Because strength was never meant to isolate you. It was meant to support you. And maybe the strongest thing you can do isn't holding everything together, but letting yourself be held for once. That doesn't make you less reliable. It makes you real. And there's something quietly powerful about that kind of honesty. Because when you allow yourself to exist beyond the role of the strongest one, you create space for something deeper. Connection. Authenticity. Peace. And in that space, you don't just survive. You begin to feel again. Fully. Honestly. Without the constant pressure to perform strength. And that's where something shifts inside you. Not loudly, but deeply. Like a quiet exhale you didn't realize you were holding for years. The strongest person in the room isn't the one who never breaks. It's the one who finally allows themselves not to pretend they never do. If this resonated with something you've been carrying, take a moment to sit with it, and maybe subscribe to keep exploring these quiet truths about the mind. What does strength mean to you when no one is watching?